Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Rowe. We're going to talk about Bill Maher's diss at our favorite awards show, the Oscars. Bill Maher basically did a skit called The Debbies, where he talks about how all the Oscar nominees from this year are just downer movies that nobody wants to watch, and why can't we have old Hollywood and something social justice. It was just like a weird hodgepodge of like a lot of different rants that don't really make sense together. It was just a takedown of a lot of movies that I think don't deserve it. He had absolutely no respect for these artists and for the craft of these films. A lot of them are brilliant. And it also just makes absolutely no sense, and the comments are really annoying. So we're gonna go at it.
The Oscars need to change their name to the Debbies, as in Debbie Downer.
Yeah, they're all downers, yeah!
Because judging by this year's Best Picture nominees, you couldn't have a worse time at the movies if there was an active shooter in the theater.
Right off the bat, it's weird because Bill Maher is sort of like maybe a pseudo-intellectual is kind of his brand. But here, he's completely deviating from being an intellectual at all, and he's saying, I don't want a movie that's gonna make me think or be sad. What the hell is the point of these?
A new poll found that less than half of Americans now go to church. They don't have to. If they want to feel guilty, dirty, and bad, they can watch Nomadland.
Nomadland doesn't make me feel guilty, dirty, or bad.
Exactly.
Why would it make me feel guilty?
It actively subverts, like, trying to make you go, oh, I feel so bad for these homeless people. Like, I want to donate money. Like, doesn't want you to do that.
In Judas and the Black Messiah, the FBI kills the leader of the Black Panthers, and in the trial of the Chicago 7, the FBI kills the leader of the Black Panthers again.
First off, it's depressing because they show a real thing that happened, that our government did to somebody, and that makes it a depressing movie that's not worth watching. It's not needlessly making you feel bad.
You could point to, like, any sad thing that happens in any movie and say that makes this movie a downer.
The amount of backflips and cartwheels and, like, hoops he jumps through to get the Chicago 7 to be this downer movie, I mean, my God, no, it's not. This is actually exactly the kind of movie that he, like, wants to be here from the rest of this rant.
Yeah.
Promising Young Woman has Carey Mulligan.
And I'm just gonna skip this part because he spoils Promising Young Woman. No thank you. That was really shitty.
He spoils the shit out of Promising Young Woman and Minari, and it's really annoying.
Sound of Metal is about a musician going deaf. The Father is about an octogenarian descending into dementia.
The Father is a depressing movie, and it is one of the only movies that actually fits this weird criteria he's put there.
Minari is the story of dirt poor Korean immigrants in Arkansas.
Why are you taking shots? I don't understand.
Also, let's just neglect the fact that, like, so many of these movies can actually leave you, like, feeling hopeful or joyful. Like, Minari is like, very funny and, like, really makes you feel good a lot of the time. And just because it has both these sides, like, doesn't mean that it's just a downer of a movie. Like, Sound of Metal has a lot of sad subject matter, but at the end of the day, like, that movie makes you feel, like, spiritually kind of uplifted.
But would it kill you once in a while to make a movie that doesn't make me want to take a bath with the toaster?
Would it kill you to make a movie that I don't have to think about?
I just want my movies to be dumb. It's like, if you want your movies to be dumber, just, like, say that. Like, I want the movies to nominate stupid popcorn flicks that I'll forget within 2 days, and stop pretending like this somehow makes you, like, better than the Oscars or the filmmakers. Like, I don't know why you think this puts you on, like, a pedestal for being like, yes, fuck movies that make me think and cry.
This is the same energy of people who like thought that Ricky Gervais, like, ripping into Hollywood was like the second coming of Jesus. Like, thank God he's here to, like, tell them what they're doing wrong.
And we like when Ricky Gervais does that. Like, he's funny.
Yeah, it's fine. But he's, like, hopping on, like, that whole, like, sentiment, but there's no connection, there's no link, but he's trying to make one.
We all had a rough year. A little escapism would have been appreciated, but your list...
They were made, like, before the pandemic, but that's okay.
Where's the comfort food?
If you want your comfort food, if you don't like these kind of movies, then just kind of say, like, to each their own.
It's like anti-argument. Like, it's not making an argument. It's just like, come on, like, you could say blab in that tone and people would be like, you're like, yeah.
He doesn't have to speak English. He just has to say that, like, the subject is, like, Hollywood, and he can lump all these movies and you're just like, Hollywood, as if the executives are ordering movies like Minari to be made, and they're like, we're gonna make a movie about a deaf musician who spiritually gets fulfilled in the end. It's just like a disregard for the actual process of making like these indie films.
They forgot how to help people escape from their problems, and then they wonder why they're losing their audience in droves.
The ratings are also probably going down just because like the interest in live TV is not there anymore. And it's annoying when people act like the only reason it's going down is the reason that they want it to go down. It's not like Hollywood doesn't produce these. He's kind of acting like these are the only 8 movies that Hollywood made this year. Like there were plenty of escapist movies. It's just like, that's not the Oscars place. Like, I don't know why you think that the Oscars need to be nominating like these escapist movies. Like that's obviously not what they're for. They're for valuing movies that go beyond that.
Academy nominations used to say, look what great movies we make. Now they say, look what good people we are. It's not about entertainment. It's about suffering, specifically yours. It's not 2 hours to forget your troubles. It's traffic school at the Holocaust Museum.
This is funny considering one of the movies he brings up later.
Which one is the bad guy? It's you.
It's funny that he's arguing like Nomadland is supposed to make you feel bad for poor people. Like, it's not a self-pitying movie.
Again, him saying that all these movies are just pity parties designed to make liberals feel good about feeling bad, it's just weird. Like, considering all the movies, which, you know, we've seen them all, it just doesn't actually make sense for all of them.
I mean, feeling bad during a movie is just you empathizing with the story that you've been presented with. It's not necessarily a feeling of guilt. They're kind of two separate
it's not
things.
like a virtue signal, but if he says that word, he gets applause.
This is one reason why Godzilla vs. Kong stomped at the box office last weekend and finally got people back to theaters.
You just got Godzilla vs. Kong. He's like, where are the good old days? Where's Godzilla vs. Kong? And like, that just came out. Like, Hollywood can't wait to feed you more of that dog food.
Not that I want to see Godzilla vs. Kong either.
Oh, oops. He doesn't want to see Godzilla vs. Kong. He wants to see something else. Never mind.
Used to know.
Oh, the Grapes of Wrath. That's what he wants to see. This is the best part.
Yeah.
The Grapes of Wrath? That movie's about poor immigrants. It's much more grueling than like Minari.
They used to know how to make a movie that was about something. A movie for adults that was also entertaining.
So Hollywood used to be able to make movies for adults that were entertaining, but didn't make you feel depressed? And then you show Grapes of Wrath? Are you kidding me?
No, he shows Schindler's List. He shows 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah,
He
come on.
even criticizes Judas and the Black Messiah. Like, that's a depressing movie because the leader of the civil rights movement got assassinated. And then they show Milk, and they didn't even fucking realize the irony of so many of these picks. Schindler's List is far more depressing than every single one of these movies. And there's no reason that you could say that's like, oh, well, that movie was an example of when they made sad movies that make you feel good for feeling sad. But the movies they do it now, it's just different. It's just different.
12 Years a Slave? That movie's literally actually meant to make you feel bad because of the sins of our past. Maybe my favorite is Do the Right Thing. Like, holy God. Give me another movie that gives you more of like an anxious feeling for society and for like race relations. Paints this like very ugly portrait of our country.
We all know that any of those movies from that list, if they were in this lineup, he'd be criticizing them for feeling sad.
Yeah.
It's just like this vague, meaningless, oh, the good old days of Hollywood when they didn't used to do exactly what they're doing right now, but it was in the old days, so it doesn't apply.
Back when movies were dumb. Because his examples of when Hollywood was better don't make any sense with what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like, again, all the argument is tone and rhetoric and just the way that he says things. And they're like, whatever happened to that? What happened to this? And then people are like, I know! What happened? They're like really mad about just everything.
I almost feel like the person who put in the pictures was actually fucking with Bill Maher to highlight the irony. Like, they could have shown like actual escapist movies like, you know, Indiana Jones or Back to the Future or something. Like, they could have made the argument with that. But
Even Forrest Gump would have been a good example too.
The funniest part of the whole night is the in memoriam segment.
Why is it funny? That's like my
It's because he
question.
made the audience go, oh, and then he went, yeah, you're offended.
I keep asking myself, why do so many liberals have this
Here comes, like, the
desire
somehow it's
to
woke
want
liberal
to be
thing.
sad? Could it be because being sad allows you to feel like you're doing something about a problem without actually having to do anything?
The only reason that I want to feel sad in movies because I want to feel bad about something and like it makes me feel good. Like, no, just no, it doesn't resonate with me.
I mean, feeling like you're empathizing with people that you wouldn't normally is a value of cinema, and a lot of times it does kind of feel good to do that. And then, plenty of people close the chapter there. Not everybody becomes an activist after they see a movie, but
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd like criticize movie making for that. It just feels weird.
Yeah, it's people's decision what they do with that experience. And why is it like, oh, only liberals are watching the movies? Like, that's kind of weird too. I just don't.
There's like one movie in the lineup, and it's Judas, that actually has like left-wing ideology, like really strong left-wing ideology. I don't really understand how the other movies do it.
Trial of Chicago 7 is like left, but it's not.
It's agreeable,
there. It's
though.
not in like that, what Bill Maher is painting. Bill Maher probably loved Trial of Chicago 7, but didn't want to say it.
He didn't say this, but this is also like what people take it as. But it's so annoying when people are like, yeah, they're nominating all the woke movies like Minari. And it's like, there's nothing about Minari
Minari's
that
not
isn't
a
just
woke
like a universal fucking immigrant story. But I guess because it doesn't have like white people dominating the cast, you assume it's woke.
I
and you
think that's
haven't
like
seen
a
it.
form of racism to be like, oh, well, this movie has black people or Asian people in it, and therefore it's trying to be woke. Like, that is so just wrong and like gross that people think that way.
Yeah, and Bill Maher didn't actually say that. To be fair, that's just like probably the comments.
No. Honestly, if you sat down and had a conversation with him about the movies, he probably wouldn't be like, I probably wouldn't have that many bones to
Well,
pick.
I don't think he's seen them.
But yeah, exactly. He hasn't seen them. And my issue is more like that people are watching this and they actually like that they're attaching on something like, oh my God, Bill Maher is like giving me something to be outraged about. This is great. Like, I hate Hollywood. People are taking it seriously, and he's going to deter people from watching the movies, and people are going to echo what he says without knowing shit. So you mentioned the Oscars to somebody because you want to recommend them a movie. They're like, oh man, like the Oscars are just a downer and they just say that because it's not their opinion. Bill Maher spoon-fed them that opinion and that thought, and they just love to echo it because Bill Maher is like edgy.
I mean, there are ways to criticize the type of movies that the Oscars nominate. Even like, Ricky Gervais doing it at the Golden Globes. Like, you don't get the feeling that he actually like hates the movies or like disrespects the artists.
Bill Maher probably was not stewing over how much he dislikes the Oscars, okay? His writers were probably assigned a segment on the Oscars and they had to come up with something. So like, oh yeah, like all the movies are kind of like sad, which is, maybe. Like that's also, okay. But then like it really went off the rails in a way that maybe they didn't even intend to initially, where like the rant just became kind of nonsense and very like anti-art and anti-intellectual.
Anti-movies that make you think and feel. And there have been a lot of people this year, including apparently Oscar voters, who are like, yeah, I don't really like know much about the movies this year and I haven't seen them. And they'll like criticize the slate of movies for being like not mainstream enough. It's like, yeah, but isn't the point of like some awards shows like to honor movies that maybe you haven't heard of, and you can give them a recommendation, you can give them a look. It's to give them extra exposure. Godzilla vs. Kong doesn't need extra exposure.
But the reason that there is no exposure to the movies was because we had a pandemic, so
yeah,
you can't really ignore that.
Maybe Dune would have been an Oscar contender, but of course, a studio that's more concerned about making money had to push their film. There's not really any acknowledgement of that either.
And these movies saved movies, by the way. Like, we can't just write them off as garbage that just went in during the pandemic and like tried to substitute what Hollywood can really give us. They completely saved the year from being movieless, and they gave us something real to like treasure during this time when Hollywood wasn't able to provide that.
Woo! Woo! You haven't seen a single fucking movie.
Virtue signaling has already ruined most of the internet, the publishing industry, the New York Times, and most of
Now
the
it's like
colleges where
somehow
football
virtue
isn't a
signaling is part of
priority.
this too.
Please, at least leave us the movies. Because
So somehow all the Best Picture nominees are virtue signaling, which is weird.
The reason that it's easy for him to get away with this argument is because he knows that a lot of people haven't seen the movie. So
and he
can
knows
just
his
kinda
audience
say
is
it.
sensitive to like the idea that virtue signaling is like annoying, right? Or like whenever he says the word woke, there's disdain there, and so whenever he uses it to apply it to whatever thing he's ranting about, people will automatically like join him and be like, yes, Bill Maher, defeat the wokists, Bill Maher.
in all honesty, I gotta ask, if your movie is so woke, how come I'm falling asleep?
It's just like a punny line. That's fine. Yeah, and the comments are even worse. Like, my ranting just now was not just because of Bill, but it's also because of like the way I know his audience is taking it.
Yeah.
Because I've read these comments and they're just like gross.
They're very, very dumb.
The Oscar movies are not really depressing with a couple exceptions. Movies nowadays are probably not that much more depressing than old movies, like maybe a little bit, but you know, certainly Bill Maher loves some of those depressing movies. There's something bad about a movie that makes you feel sad. I think the portrait of a typical Oscar contender he's painting is a film that tries really hard to make you feel bad and sad because it's pointing to some injustice in order to virtue signal and get other people to be like, those poor people like can't help themselves, like we need to do something about it. And that just doesn't really resemble like any of the nominees.
I mean, they've made contenders like that, and like it could be funny like to parody that kind of Oscar bait. But yeah, I'm not really sure what like The Father and Minari have to do with like, I feel so bad for these people. Or just don't watch the Oscar nominated movies and stick to your candy and your lollipops.
Bill Maher doesn't even know what he wants because he doesn't want Godzilla and Kong, but he doesn't want like Nomadland.
You win when you complain about the Oscar movies are dumb virtue signal and superhero movies are generic and annoying and like everything sucks and like there's no good movies. Like you just get points when you say that nothing's good. He didn't make a positive contribution to anything in this video. He just kind of said that things suck and vaguely that they used to be better when they were exactly the same.
He does seem to have a lot of disdain for the movies for just no reason when, you know, a lot of these are like the really small budget films that take a lot of effort to get made and have real talent behind them, not just with, you know, Hollywood actors trying to fill their egos, but with people behind the camera who are, you know, just very eager to like tell stories and they're very good at it. So it's just like, I don't understand like why the shots need to be fired at the movies. And it sucks that this is kind of happening because these films are indie.
And he also definitely didn't nail the connection between the movies being sad and somehow this is like a woke agenda. It didn't make sense and it's not a thing. He can just sit in his chair and just be like, woke Hollywood, woke liberals. And then everyone's like, ah, yeah.
He made a lot of people just bounce up and down in their chairs.
They felt really good about not appreciating like quality cinema.
You know, I got to defend the films that were nominated for the Academy Awards. I can't just sit here and let somebody do this to them and try to slander them for no reason. These are great films. Everybody should be watching them.
Yeah, it's a unique slate. A lot of them are like little indies that wouldn't normally get nominated in a year, and that's worth celebrating and not worth trashing. You know, we're just sticking up for our guy Oscar over here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Which movie triggered your guilt the hardest?